Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for those who passed away in our community, and especially Kyle Gilmartin and Donna Boyd. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Smurl?
Here.
Mr. President, just for clarification, we were praying for those who passed away in our community. You did mention Kyle Gilmartin. He is, I just want to clarify that he is recovering, and he's, everybody's been praying for him and supporting him. I just want to clarify for anybody that may be watching on YouTube. I know most people realize that, but it kind of sounded a little bit like...
Yeah, I'm going to mention him every week anyway.
Thank you.
Until he comes home. So
Continued prayers.
Just to clarify. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. King. We're going to have a proclamation, Mr. King.
Yes, we have a proclamation we're going to read here this evening. I'm going to step down here, and I'll ask council and the mayor to join me, please. And the Miskalchiks to please come up. Okay, the City of Scranton proclamation honoring Aaron Miskalchik, January 31st, 2024. Whereas the City of Scranton seeks to recognize outstanding achievements by individuals and organizations with roots in Scranton. And whereas, since 1979, the Sports Emmy Awards have honored outstanding achievements in sports programming by conferring annual awards of merit and have been recognized as the premier standard bearer for the industry accomplishments. And whereas Aaron Miskalchik was born and raised in Scranton and a student of the Scranton School District who graduated from Scranton High School in 2004 and Penn State University in 2008 with the Bachelor of Arts in Telecommunications. And whereas after her education, Erin worked in digital transmission, production management, and event management, which included roles with the Big Ten Network prior to joining NBC Sports as a studio supervisor. And whereas during the 2022 Winter Olympics held in Beijing, Erin worked as an associate producer on the NBC Sports Olympic Games coverage. And whereas with 10 years of experience at NBC Sports, Erin became a senior manager in production, scheduling, tasked with implementing studio and remote production crews for all of NBC Sports properties. And whereas at the 44th Annual Sports Emmy Awards, NBC Sports Programming Division won the Outstanding Live Special for its coverage of the 24th Winter Games, and Erin was credited with contributing to the Television Network's award. Therefore, the Mayor, Paige G. Cognetti, along with Scranton City Council members, would like to honor Aaron Miskalchik on this day, January 31st, 2024, congratulate her for a successful 5th Olympic Games with NBC Sports and express our pride for Scranton being represented at the 44th Sports Emmy Awards. And with us here tonight are her parents, Ron and Mary Ann Miskalchik, and Aaron was one of my students at South Scranton Intermediate School, so we're very, very proud of her. And Aaron couldn't be here this evening, right? She's... Where is she? She's in studio. So, but this, I think that this is a great honor, and it just goes to show what our kids from the Scranton School District can accomplish and some of the great things. And Aaron is one of many of our students who've graduated from Scranton and West Scranton High School and Scranton Tech through the years who've gone on to do tremendous things. And this, certainly, there are very few who have won Emmy Awards. So this is a huge honor for Erin and for her family, so congratulations.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. We'll do one more with this one. I'll do one this way too. Thank you. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Jerry? I'm sorry. You want to announce it? I may have it. Did you? It was an email, wasn't it? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I saw, but we were waiting for the other one, so I didn't know if they sent it yet. Okay.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table Resolution Number 6 of 2024.
Second. Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take this from the table, Resolution Number 6, 2024. This resolution is a liquor license transfer. It is being taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote. On the question, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved. Dispense with reading of minutes.
Third order, 3A, minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meeting held on December 20th, 2023. 3B, correspondence received from the Business Administration regarding 2 budget transfers for the Scranton Fire Department and the Parks and Recreation Department.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements?
I have 2 quick ones. So I'm happy to announce that last Friday I attended the VFW Post 25 Backs the Blue fundraiser for Detective Gil Martin. There was a fantastic turnout for this event. God bless him. Secondly, I would also like to announce that last night I attended and spoke on behalf of myself and the residents of Scranton at the public hearing with the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission and American Water, strongly opposing the proposed rate increase. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anyone else? All right.
Fourth order, citizen participation.
Our first one, Anita Steenson.
Yes, thank you very much, and I appreciate the City Council and the public allowing me to go out of order. So if I could introduce myself, my name is Anita Steenson, and I'm a Public Affairs Specialist with the U.S. Small Business Administration, Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. And I am here as a result of your governor's request of our administrator for a disaster declaration. And what that means is, and most people don't realize, is during disaster declarations, the Small Business Administration provides resources to homeowners and renters, not just businesses and nonprofits. So we're very honored and humbled to be here in your community to provide recovery assistance to the public as a result of the terrible flooding that occurred here last September. And we offer our sincerest condolences to the community for the loss of life, as well as the terrible, terrible damage that occurred in your community. So I just wanted to introduce myself and give a very brief introduction as to what we have to offer, and I wanted to let the officials know that through the county emergency manager here in Lackawanna County, we've scheduled on Friday the 2nd at 10 a.m. at the Public Safety Building a more detailed informational PowerPoint that explains how disasters get declared, perhaps the situation, with FEMA versus SBA, some of the new rural community resources that became available as of July 31st, which I understand is very important to this community and the nearby communities that you can avail yourself of in the future, and how our program works. And the ask that I'm making of you here tonight and in the future is if you will help us share our message to get it out to the community and the public. Because, as I said, most people don't realize that the Small Business Administration provides resources to homeowners and renters having absolutely nothing to do with business. So if you'd like, I can just tell you a quick what we have. Okay, so what we have for homeowners is we have low-interest loans, and that is 2.5% interest loans up to $500,000. And on top of that, we have an additional $100,000 that homeowners and renters can access to replace personal property. And that can include a car or your furnishings that got destroyed in a flooding. And all of our loans, including the business loans I'm going to talk about, have absolutely no payments and no interest due the first year. And the interest does not accrue the first year, so there's no gotcha at the end of the first year. And it's our hope that during that first year, you will have time to continue to pursue and see what else might be available to you by way of grants or other situations. So you can use the SBA money to pay down. At this point, a lot of people have spent money to fix their situation. They might have put it on high-interest credit cards so they can maybe pay themselves back or continue to pursue grants, or if they're involved with an insurance company and they didn't, get that or still pursuing that, they have funds to get things fixed. So all of our loans are no payments and no interest for the first year. Businesses and nonprofits can access up to $2 million, and the interest rate for businesses is 4%, and nonprofits, it's 2.375. So nonprofits find it very useful to have the 1-year interest-free because they can replenish themselves as they go about trying to get, find out what their pledging is going to be. So that's it in a nutshell. We are direct lenders, so it's a streamlined, easy process. We have a recovery center currently set up here in Lackawanna, County, at the County Center for Public Safety at 30 Valley View Drive, and people can also make applications online. And I provided some information which gives a really easy link. These are disaster loans. You guys are survivors. There's no minimum credit score. The documentation is very streamlined. We want to make you this loan. So that's pretty much.
All right, thank you. Any council members have any questions?
Yeah, I actually had a couple of questions. So, Mrs. Steenson, there was an article in the newspaper in the last few days.
Yes, sir.
Is this the loan program that was mentioned in that article?
Yes, sir. I've been trying to get the word out, so yes.
Is this citywide because it's disaster, or is it just affected homes?
The loan is to repair disaster damage. However, businesses also have access to what's called our economic injury, and those loans don't require any actual damage. That provides working capital to businesses, almost like, if you will, the COVID loans. And those economic injury loans also extend outside of Lackawanna County to, you're going to have to help me with the actual pronunciation of all the counties. We have Wayne, Wyoming, Monroe, Luzerne,
Luzerne?
Luzerne, and say it again for me. Luzerne and Susquehanna. Okay, those counties can access our economic injury loans because we know that business doesn't stop at the borders. So.
And then you said there's two types of loans. There's one for personal property and there's another one for damages. Are they the same interest rate for each of those loans?
So homeowners and renters have a 2.5% interest rate. Businesses have physical damages and economic injury. And if you're a business, whether it's a physical damage, just in Lackawanna County gets physical damages. All of the counties outside of Lackawanna County only get economic injury. So the interest rate for businesses and nonprofits are the same, 4% for businesses, whether it's economic injury or physical damages inside of Lackawanna County, and a 2.375 for nonprofits. And then outside Lackawanna County, it's just economic injury, 4% for businesses, and 2.375 for nonprofits.
And fixed interest, or does the rate change?
Fixed interest for up to 30 years, and again, no payments and no cost. There's absolutely no cost to apply, and there is no obligation to take the loan, which is why we encourage everybody to apply and just see what your options are. If you like it, the loan, if you don't like the loan, see what you're eligible for.
All right. Anyone else? No? Thank you. And there's information that was brought. Allison, is this on the outside where people sign in, the information pamphlets? No, just so they're accessible if anybody wants them.
Yeah, hopefully we could put it on like a multimedia or I can provide a link where people can go and again, people can come down to the Recovery Center, just ask questions. If they just want information, there's absolutely no obligation at all. We just want people to know what's available to them because it probably doesn't ring organic, small business, homeowners and renters. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, and if you have any questions, you have all of my information. I'm happy to answer. And I hope somebody can come to the informational meeting on Friday. I'll make sure I send the information to the clerk's office, and a representative can maybe come and learn some more details.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for letting me speak out of turn.
Joan Hodowanis?
You gotta love these foreigners. Joan Odawan in Scranton. I was impressed by her presentation, but I must also say that I was disappointed to read in the paper that FEMA denied the county's application for aid. So in fifth order, if you would please, any update you could give us on tax relief for our homeowners. And I was also very impressed last night. I was also at the public hearing for Pennsylvania American Water's rate increase, even though I'm not a ratepayer. But I was very happy to see that the 5 of you were at the night session and that you clearly voiced your opposition to the rate increase. I'll be watching to see what happens with that. I was also very happy that he stepped away, but Frank helped Scott Thomas, the CEO of the Scranton Public Library, get invited to a meeting that the mayor had this morning about the gang problem. And she had many people there, about 30 people, talking about approaches to that problem. People tend to forget that, the school district is obviously a key player in, the gang issue and preventing it from arising or identifying it if it's happening. But what happens when the school district closes its schools during the summer? The library is one of the few assets that remains open 24/7. Well, it's not 24 hours a day, but it's open every day, 12 months a year. So Scott's got some very good ideas about things that they can do, because there are programs that the library has from infancy to seniors in high school. And so I'm glad that Frank was able to help him get invited to that council meeting, and he's now part of that group. I also, on Monday night, attended one of the first meetings of this Scranton's Environmental Advisory Council, and Mr. Schuster was also there. And I was impressed by the caliber of people who are sitting on that authority. People like Bernie McGurl, who has retired from, I guess, the LRCA and is looking for something to do with this time. And they were right now they're just standing up this council. So they're in the process of writing their bylaws and that kind of thing and getting their webpage set up. But they were talking about things that they wanted to pursue, things like the walkability study, climate change, recycling, stormwater management, and all the environmental impacts that all these issues have on the city. So they're going to meet quarterly. Their next meeting is April 29th. It's a Monday at 4 p.m. in the governor's room. And anybody who's interested in some of these issues and has ideas and questions and recommendations might want to come and start, sitting in on some of these things, on these meetings, if they have the time and the energy. Because, you get the government you deserve, and if you have an opinion, you should express it. If you have questions, you should ask it. And like I said, I was rather impressed by the caliber of people who were appointed to this board. These people tend to be very serious and very well educated and very ambitious. So I just want to put that out. And finally, you probably saw in the paper that the Library Express bookstore in the marketplace at Steamtown will be closing at the end of April. So starting tomorrow, everything for sale in that bookstore, and they have more than books. They have greeting cards, they have T-shirts, they have all this Dunder Mifflin paraphernalia. Everything in the bookstore is going to be 20% off until they liquidate their entire inventory. So that's a good opportunity for people, you know, who may want to pick up something special for a gift or for themselves. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. John Pocius?
Good evening, Council. John Pocius, Manuka, Scranton. First, I'd just like to take us on a personal note. You did honor some of the deceased people. I saw this in the paper this morning. I don't know if you knew Patrolman Don Duffy. He was a good guy. He was probably worked back with my dad, at least when my dad was chief of police back in the 60s, and he should be remembered. He was a good man, a quiet cop, and a very good cop. So that's just a little personal note right there. I'm here tonight. I never thought I'd come back. I guess I'm here as a former city engineer and a former city councilman because things like this drive me crazy. And for some reason, I was never dropped as an email on the Green Light Go program. So I've been receiving reports for the past couple of years on these projects that we had underway. The two projects that we have are the replacement of the traffic signal at Greenridge and Wyoming Avenue, and the second project was the Cedar Avenue Signal Improvement Project, which included new signals on Elm Street and Maple Street. Those signals were out last week for a couple of weeks. They were running on stop signs. It's one of the oldest systems in the city. But I got these emails and I'm very concerned. It says that these reports are sent out by PennDOT on the Green Light Go. Green Light Go is a program set up by PennDOT to help cities. Every traffic signal has to be approved by the municipality, and then they inherit the signal once it's constructed. So PennDOT set up this program to allow for money for new signals to replace, modify, whatever. City's been successful in a bunch of grants. We did Sanderson and Greenridge. We had inventory. We were able to get LED light bulbs for the things. But these two reports have been kind of stagnant for the last bunch of reports. I did send them to Mr. Smurl. We had a conversation last October. He reported that the administration told him everything was under control. I do not believe so. In bold letters in the email, it says, failure to respond to these reports will not be permitted to justify an extension of the deadlines below. PennDOT is unable to extend the expiration date since grant funding is tied to the state fiscal calendar year and the appropriate funds lapse at the end of the fiscal year. They also say that they encourage that the projects be bid at least a year in advance to allow for the slow production of the traffic mast arms and poles and other traffic signal equipment. For Greenridge Street, I actually signed that plan back in April of 2020, the approved signal plan. Then COVID hit and they put Green Light Go on hold. In the interim, we received the grant for Elm Street and Maple Street on Cedar Avenue to the tune of $88,000 because I wrote the estimate for that, for the grant application. The city's schedule here shows that these projects should have been bid last year and were supposed to be completed by May 15th. Unless I'm missing something, they are not. They have not been bid yet.
What was the end of the fiscal year? Is it 2023 was the end of the fiscal
No,
year?
2024, Tom,
Okay.
June 30th, Councilman Schuster. So what I'm saying is remaining, excuse me, I have to put my glasses on. Remaining in the Cedar Avenue grant is roughly $108,000 that could be spent towards the construction of the signal. And under the Cedar Avenue grant, there's $418,000 left. So unless you guys can, and women can find something else out, this ship is going to fly, and there's 3 intersections in the city that we're not going to be able to do. I don't want to go over my time because I was a stickler on that when I was up there. So I want to ask you one other thing to look into. We received a multimodal grant in 2019 for the Ash Street Bridge replacement. We received, I think, about $1.1 million. The total project cost was about 1.4. That grant also has guidelines and an expiration date. I don't know if you gentlemen and ladies have heard anything about this, but I certainly haven't. So I would think you would want to get an update on that. Now, this is for the good of the order. I'd like to give you an update on the PennDOT bundled bridges. They were the bridges that we turned over to PennDOT, and they're designing and going to construct and give back to the city when they're done. East Parker Street, I don't know when exactly, but it has been bid and let. There's a contractor on board for East Parker. That's the first one to go. I know this because I stay in touch at Professional Affairs with the engineers that are designing these, and we talk about, the projects. Elm Street over the Lackawanna River is the next project to be bid, probably maybe February. These are all through PennDOT. And then the other 2 are Main Avenue over Leggett's Creek. That's going to be dependent on Parker Street being done, only because the detours are the same. And West Lackawanna over Norfolk Southern Railroad, they just cleared their PUC hearing with the railroad. So that's kind of, I think, because of the detours involved, you may want to get an update yourselves on these, because you're going to get a lot of questions. Why are all these cars on Boulevard Avenue or Main Avenue or something like that? And you could get an update. I think if you called PennDOT, they'd be glad to send somebody down to talk to you.
All right, Mr. Polchis, if you have a minute.
Sure.
Ash Street was started last year. The first phase was done, the big bank and stuff, and they cleared the first section. And then when the flood came, they did not do the first part the last part before the bridge, before it goes underneath into that big turn. But I know that was started. The first half of it is done. Parker Street Bridge, PPL, where it's just got, we actually passed it, I believe, last week. So they were waiting on us, but that was our fault. That was council. We tabled it for a while, but that's all straightened out and that's on the go. As far as the Green Light Go project, this is from this afternoon. Both projects are with Baker International, who you know is the engineer for PennDOT. Okay, they have both of them. The city signed and approved both final permits and construction plans from PennDOT engineer last November, when you first brought that up. Okay, so the plans were sent to PennDOT, and we are still waiting for their approval and their permit to put it in. So that's where we stand.
Well, I signed the final signal plans for the approved plan for Wyoming and Greenridge. I know that's done. The other project I had no involvement with. So I just hope
they haven't been forgotten. They're still.
I just hope the ship haven't sailed, but I don't think you quite understand about. I don't want to take any more time, but this Ash Street project. This is for replacement, demolition, replacement of the bridge. This is permitting. This is design. This is a bid. I have not seen a bid in the paper for Ash Street Bridge, because I read the papers every day. So I think you want to get an update from the administration as where we're at with this project. Have they given it to the new city engineer to design? Have they gone out for consultant? I mean, I really don't know. And I think it's, but all these grants, they're locally managed grants.
They're from, a lot of them are from 2018 also, but I'll get you that information. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's no big deal.
Because everything is in process. I've been through this a number of times with these bridges and stuff. So they are all in process, but I'll get you that information, okay?
And just one other thing, I think City of Scranton has a lot of posted bridges. I think that should be a priority of the administration, and I know you guys will assist in any way possible to look for funding for these bridges. If that needed, that federal money can be used for bridge replacement, which I think it can. Right now, you've got Salt Washington Avenue, you've got Hickory Street, you've got Hollow Avenue, you got Mary Street.
Contact with PennDOT.
I still have them in my head, but they're still city projects,
we are
Council
working
President. You know?
Okay.
And on one more personal note, my street is in deplorable condition, and I didn't want to come over and say this, but the 400 block of McDonough Street in Manuka really needs a milling and resurfacing. So anything you could do to do that, I would really appreciate it.
I can't get mine done.
I
so
don't
good
think
luck.
it's been,
Thank you, John.
I don't think it's been paved since,
Thank you.
Thank
Norma
you.
Jeffries? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, Norma, you're next. Yes, you are.
Mr. Voldenberg, could we get an update on the Green Light Goes? I know I've asked several times since these projects started and since the gentleman from the library has come over and mentioned Wyoming, and I think that's going back 2 years now. I know we're always being told that it's been approved and it's going to be worked on, but if we can get is this thing going out to bid, and is it within the timeline, and are we at risk of losing these funds? I think would be the questions to ask.
I'll get that information.
Thank you.
Frank, if you could also get an update as to where we are with that Ash Street Bridge project.
I will, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Sorry, Norma.
Thank you.
Norma Jeffries. Norma Jeffries, Scranton resident. And I'm starting off tonight by thanking the people that went to the PUC conference or meeting yesterday. I went to the 1 o'clock, and it was a nice attendance there, and the speakers were awesome. All of the mayors from the different cities and everything spoke, and the representatives, and they gave such a great presentation as to why there shouldn't be the increase in the water and all. And there was just such a lot of information that the people that I was with didn't know, and that's that you pay for your meter every month. And they said, like the one person that I was with, she's had her house for 30 years. So she's been paying that meter charge for that box sitting on her house for 30 years, you know. So I'm sure it's been paid for more than once. But there was a lot of good information that came out. And kudos to everyone that spoke. And Doris couldn't be here tonight, and she wanted to thank all of the council members that were there. She was at the 6 o'clock, so she wanted to make sure and ask me if I would thank you guys for that as well. I'm starting off my night thanking everybody, and I guess the gentleman's gone, but we do have that pothole hotline, which I do take advantage of. So, of course, I hit another pothole yesterday, and it was in the evening. I was doing some computer work, and I thought, so I called. It was about 8:30, 8:15. I called the hotline, and I left the message. And believe it or not, I got a call back last night at 9:15 from a Joe. He was working the second shift, and he called me back, and we talked about the potholes that I was concerned about. And we talked, too, about the weather. Of course, that has its impact on the roads and what they can do. So he was very congenial, and I just enjoyed speaking with him about it. He took all the information down of what I was concerned about in the potholes and all, and he said it'll go on the list. And while I had him on the phone, I also asked him about the street paving list. And I know that this is 24, 23, or maybe the end of 22. My street was on for street paving, and it never got paved. Lots of potholes are filled, but it never got paved. So I went to the city website to see if there was a list of the street paving list for 2023 that might have carried over to 24. And of course, I wasn't able to find anything. And being on that, our city website, it just needs so much work. You know, there's so much activity on there that's outdated, or either it's not even giving you what you need. And I say that because under the board for the Municipal Recreation Authority, which I'm on the board, and the information there is so outdated. It's talking about the swimming pool, and it's talking about things that don't have anything. They're so outdated. So I know that IT is probably very busy with things, but I would, I volunteer for a lot of things, and I certainly would like to volunteer and offer my services to update that portion of the website information so that we can be up to date and on as many things as possible. I mean, I'm a city resident, so you can imagine with people coming to the city and is looking to our city site for information, and they're not going to get it. They're going to get outdated information, which is not good for our city. let's see, what else do I have on my little letter here? Oh, it talked about the bench sale and the zoo. I mean, come on, the zoo has been gone how long? I've been back in the city 7 years, and the zoo was gone before I got back, and when I was a kid, it was here. So, you know, those are the things that really need to be addressed. And also, of course, my pet, like I said, I volunteer a lot. My food drive is, it's not my food drive, it's the SMRA food drive. It's going to be next weekend on February the 10th and the 11th. And I've been doing a lot of outreach to make sure that it's overflowing with food from the community. So I'm just thanking those in advance if they could come to the Naog Park on October the 10th and October the, oh, why did I get October from? February the 10th and February the 11th, if they could just come and help us just overflow that room with food, because we usually break it down and give it to the local food pantries that Tuesday by the time we break it down and they come and get it. So help us out with that. And lots of the stores are having buy one, get one, or 4 cans of this for $5 or whatever, but help out our community. And one more thing, I'm not going to be here next week because it's my grandson's birthday, so I have to go out of town for that. But if you would please, council, mention the food drive because that'll be the Tuesday before the event, and I won't be here, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norma. Les Spindler?
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident homeowner. I, too, was at the meeting last night in front of the PUC, and I had to leave after I spoke. But I was very impressed with everybody that spoke before me. And from everything I heard and all the people on the panel that were representing the citizens, I don't know how this could possibly be passed by the PUC. I think this is going to get voted down, and I hope I'm right. Next thing. Until the last few weeks, I didn't realize how prevalent gangs were in our city. And I saw in the paper yesterday or the day before where the school district is going to educate their staff. And that's all well and good, but I was speaking to a neighbor of mine the other day. She was saying that the city, and I totally agree with her, the city should have some kind of meeting, maybe at Scranton High School or whatever, and try to educate the people of the city on gangs. And she had a thought, and so did I. Said, that 16-year-old that was arrested last week, the person that called 911 recognized that he had a red bandana on, and he figured that out, that he was part of a gang because of that. I wouldn't have known that. If I just saw that kid walking, I wouldn't have known that a red bandana meant he was in the gang. And so did this woman I was talking to. She said she wouldn't have known that. And I'll bet everybody in this room probably wouldn't have known that. I think it would be a good idea to get the police department or the gang task force possibly to have a big meeting, invite everybody that wants to show up and educate them on what to look for. If the person looks like a gang member, or even if it's close to it. But, you know, we were lucky last week that that person spotted that kid because something terrible could have happened. So maybe we could send a letter to the police chief or the gang task force and see if we can get something like that done. I think it would be an excellent idea because the people of this city have to be educated. Like I said, I would have thought that kid was just walking around for no other reason but maybe going somewhere. And while I'm on that subject, last week, because Mr. McAndrew, you were modeling a shirt you got honoring the Detective Gilmartin. Well, I have one on also.
Nice.
And,
Wear it better than I do.
while we're on that subject also, I don't know if people saw in the paper that it started Monday and it ends Friday at Krispy Kreme Donuts, that they're selling 3 donuts for $5, and all the $5 goes directly to the Gilmartin family, which is great. I bought mine the other day. There's nothing better than Krispy Kreme glazed donuts. So if anybody hasn't gone up there, it would be a good investment. $5, and it all, not a percentage, all the $5 goes to the family. And it goes till this Friday, so there's still time. Lastly, talking about bridges. I've spoken about this many times. The bridge on Main Avenue where Euclid Avenue meet. Last Friday, 18-wheeler was stuck under the bridge. A few weeks before that, flatbed 18-wheeler was going by with PVC pipe on it. Didn't make it. All the PVC pipe on the truck was all over the road because they're plastic. It was plastic all over the road. It's like every week or every other week, that bridge is hit by an 18-wheeler. Whether we need more signage or what, I don't know what the solution could be, but I have a solution I think that might help. The bridge that's on the corner of Kapowski and Olive, the railroad, they painted their name on the bridge with the height in big white numbers, the height of the bridge. Then maybe if we can get in touch with the railroad that owns that bridge on Main Avenue, if they could do something like that, because there's, like I said, at least 2-3 times, maybe 4 times a month, this is happening. And it's terrible inconvenience because it holds up traffic going in both directions. And but I think something should be done. PennDOT, they did have those digital signs up for a while going in each direction, but I don't think they have them anymore. But they didn't help. But either better signage or like I said, if the railroad can paint like they did on Kapowski Avenue, I think that would be a great idea. My time is up, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler.
Mr. Spindler, in caucus previous to the regular meeting, NeighborWorks was in here, and they have the sidewalk program. I hope you spoke with Mr. Getman about the $4,000 match for that, for possibly Bulwer with some of the neighbors to get together to maybe take advantage of that sidewalk opportunity.
Yeah, I spoke to Gerald Hepman about it. He gave me the information, but you have to get 5 neighbors. I don't know if I'll be able to do that.
Hawthorne Street has the same issue as Bulwer, so there might be an opportunity to get 5 of those neighbors.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
Lee Morgan?
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. You know, I'm going to talk about licensing and inspections next week. They're not going anywhere. I'd just like to say that when I was a child, we had a lot of good policemen in the city. They brought up Dan Duffy, and there was also Jerry Moss and Frank McGuire, and a lot of guys that people in the neighborhood looked up to because, I don't know, because they were police and they were fair. And I'm really troubled where we are, and I listen to what everybody here says about gangs, but I think we should appreciate the police. Nobody needs them until the chips are down. You know, but yesterday I had an opportunity to speak at the PUC meeting in the afternoon, spoke to the judges. And, you know, when Council President Wexler was the president of council, he caused a lot of pain to the community in Dunmore and Scranton by introducing the legislation to sell the Scranton Sewer Authority. And I think it's important for city residents to understand that we put a lot of political people in place in the Scranton Sewer Authority. We used it as a conduit for supporters of the mayors for an extended period of time. It was severely mismanaged. And the Sewer Authority was never designed to handle the pension debt for the city of Scranton. And we had a very corrupt mayor at that time. A lot of attorneys made a lot of money. And like I said to the PUC judge yesterday, the PUC decided that the city could sell the Scranton Sewer Authority. None of the money really went into the pension plans. It was all squandered. So, you know, when you look at the councils that we've had, they're just terrible. And then we had the opportunity for Mr. Pochis to come in here today. He was a great councilman. I remember him over 30 years ago, him and Alex Hazori, when the council members would tell the solicitor what the laws were and how things functioned. We've just moved so far away from that. It's just a shame where we really are, because it's like the city's adrift and it's on fire. And it's just a shame how the city is just continually falling apart. You know, the public access channel has to be brought back to access by the public so the politicians can really hear what the people think. Because really, coming up here speaking to this council and a multitude of other ones, soon I'll be coming here almost 40 years, and we've been ignored, and the city population has declined, and all the council members have great plans, and our population has dropped by 28,000 people. Like I said to the PUC judge, you threw us in the water. The state of Pennsylvania owns every drop of water that falls out of the sky. Pennsylvania American Water is only using their conduit to introduce the water into people's homes, and the people can't afford them. One of my coworkers made between $100,000 to $116,000 a year. He had a house in the Hill with pocket doors. He was really proud of it. One day he came to work and said, nope, I'm done with that. Walked out the door, shut the door, and walked away from the house. Why? He said, Lee, you can't live in a city where you can't afford to bathe your children. And that was the end of it. Bought a house out in the country, didn't have any of that silliness. So what I'm saying to all the people here today is we need to rewrite the city charter. We need to change our government, and we need to realize one thing. The PUC judges, the PUC commissioners are picked by the governor and by the Pennsylvania Senate. They don't represent us because the people we elect don't represent us. And you can hand out all the grant money you want to here that comes from the federal government or the state government, but you're not going to create success. People need jobs. You changed all the zoning. You have a make-believe small business incubator in the downtown. You've squandered all the grant money over an extended period of time. You even took a water slide down that the kids in this community enjoyed that was probably worth $500,000. It's just one of these. Well, what's next? It's time to think, gentlemen. Thank you.
Rick Little.
Hello, Council. I'm Rick Little. I'm officially homeless now, but I'm going to keep working on what I know. I just know too much, and I have a lot of PSTD and OCD, and it sort of works together because, especially the OCD, when I start looking into something, I go from one to the other to the other. But since I've been fighting Scranton Housing Authority, pretty much the whole time I've been there, but especially in the last 4 years in the courts are gone. And I know this because I spent 15 years in New York State family courts, and I know how courts work. I know how judges work. I know when you get into that branch of the government, the judiciary, you got lawyers, and they don't like non-lawyers practicing in their courts. I found that the Lackawanna courts are just completely crooked. They don't follow the rules of Pennsylvania civil procedure, and they have all these tricks to trick pro se litigants, oh, that's a typo, or especially the stuff, it's lost in the mail, they lost in the mail, or we sent it to you electronically, you didn't respond, and stuff like that. And that happened to me. I realized, way before COVID. I knew COVID was coming since 1992. All you have to do is read the United Nations booklet, half-inch booklet called Agenda 21. And they've written another one, you know, which bugged me because I see the United Nations flag flying on the front of the City Hall here, and United Nations is communism. They are helping bring all the people across the border. They're fostering the wars between, you know, NATO and Russia and everything. But I've always believed it starts locally, and in the last couple of months, you know, I'm calling all these, everybody's a non-for-profit. That's the biggest problem in this community, is that these non-for-profits, Scranton Housing Authority is a non-for-profit. But I looked into it, did a right to know. That's probably why I'm evicted, because I know that the executive director is making just under $200,000, and they raised their pay for everybody in Scranton Housing Authority to 4%. And they keep in business, at least for the last 28 years, through this body, through the mayor. There's a lot of backroom deals that have gone on all along, and they're just abusing the elderly. I heard the city of Philadelphia sent a bus to the city of Scranton telling and these are all old people, disabled people, people that lived in something like Scranton Housing Authority here, where I used to live, telling them, oh, come to Scranton and the Catholic services will help you. And I'm thinking, gee, Catholic Services is where I signed up for the American Rescue Act ERAT funds. And then I spent like 3 months trying to find out, going to the Globe building, no one knew where it was. It's just a runaround. And I have a hard enough time just with my phone. I never know who's calling me or who's, but it's fixed. And Scranton used to be a very great city. But I know clearly why we have a homeless problem, why we have all the gangs here, why things don't go anywhere. It just keeps going on, and it's rapidly heading toward bottom. I hear about all these, centers, and they're all 501(c)(3)s, Neighbor Works, everything is neighbor, children, and to help you, but there's no help. People have to start looking at it the way it was earlier in the governance of how, so people are responsible. So there's transparency. I'm done. Hope we get public access.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to council? Did you notice a UN flag floating up the front? That's what he said. No.
Tom Coyne, Manuka. Well, it was brought up here earlier, which I was going to put up as my own, but tax relief for the victims of the flooding. We are right now at 143 days past. So where do we stand, especially on this body statement on not waiting and being the front to the action? Is this going to take as long for this body to act as it is to get the fireman's contract posted? How about news on the Sorrenti Center? We know there were issues up there. They were supposed to come in and speak about where the financing are, where the study is, where they're going to. And then we had the unfortunate newspaper article about mismanagement of funds and funds being used where they shouldn't be. Are we ever going to get an update on the Sorrenti Center again? Is there any updates on charging nonprofits who have dorms, multiple schools who have dorms, the rental fee? Because anything that people who are occupied for over a month period of time under PA law is a rental. Dorm rooms aren't rented for by the month or by the week. Whether it be a quarter, a half a year, or an entire year, they are rented. There may be 2 people to the dorm and only one charge for that rental fee for that dorm since it has dual occupancy. But the city of Scranton, for every single dorm that is out there, for the multiple universities, should be getting that rental fee. Are we ever going to get that answer back, or is that something that, once again, the city's not sure what we mean by a rental fee and what we mean by applying it to the city, because it's been asked multiple times and it keeps coming back as off-campus properties where the student renting it, of course they pay that. We're not talking about off-campus. We're talking about properties owned by the universities that house university students that all should be paying $45 a year for those dorms. The payment in lieu of taxes certainly drops every year now from them. It would be nice if not only the University of Scranton, but all the other universities who share in the benefits of having student housing here in the city of Scranton actually kicked in to the livelihood and survivability of the city of Scranton. I made a comment on the water rate hike about how going to your boss, how silly it is going to your boss and asking for a 70% raise would get you laughed out of your boss's office. And then going back the next year and asking for an increase of 30% would be absolutely absurd. That any employer going to their bosses and saying, I need 70% this year and then 30% the following year, their employers would laugh at them. They might get 3-5% depending upon how desperately they were needed, and more likely, they'd find the front door. Those water rate hikes are ridiculous, and I made that point. But on the way back home, something hit me in the brain pan. The sarcastic point of, well, I'm complaining that these massive raises of 70%, and then they come back the next year for 30%, how it's so absurd. That's exactly what this administration has been doing. That's the policy of this city body to the taxpayers, just like the PUC coming in and robbing people at giant rates. The administration coming in here for anywhere up to 50% increases, and then coming back the following year and asking for increases on top of those increases is no different than the robbing that the water company wants to do from every citizen. It's shameful. Thank you.
Anyone else want to address council?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dodson, resident, taxpayer. Once again, I would like to make a mention that recycle buckets and bins are supposedly available at the DPW's office, and it would be helpful if the landlords in the town, seeing as home ownership has been on a decline for years. We got married in 1976, and of course we rented, but within 4 or 5 years, it was 20% down for a house and 20% interest for a house. So, you know, give you a little tip. Don't expect people not to go wild if that's, you know, nothing else left to do. And televisions, there's some type of, I'll try and get a date again. I think the March date was incorrect, but, you know, it sucks when they appear on your curb in front of your house or back by your garbage can, and they're not really yours, and they cost some serious money to get rid of. That's at least 2/3 of the pay for a really big dinner at a restaurant or something. The water situation. I felt that Mr. King had an excellent statement prepared, and seeing as he was a public official, an elected public official, he should not have been cut off at 5 minutes. If you add all of these guys up here, now we got 10 minutes last night. And if everybody was there, I saw Mr. Brewster. You were there, right? Did I see you there? Yeah. Okay. Well, the point in being that that would have occupied nearly a half hour of their time by the time we get somebody to walk up and identify themselves and sworn in. And I felt that we were seriously cut down by that, and it was a shame. Somehow we should get to the PUC and mention that if somebody's an elected official, they have a right to, should have a right to speak a little more than yah-yah like me. They tried to stop me from speaking the second time, but there's a lot of plastic bottles mentioned and so forth. And plastic breaks down into microplastic. It's present in fish. It's present in animal food. It's present in your food. And it's probably present in your system right now. It is an organic molecule with chlorine attached, so it's very close to a pesticide. And it can act like hormones or, you know, whatever, and cause some serious problems. So it's something to think about. There are fish that are actually starving because there's so much plastic in their stomachs out in the ocean. Now, the one thing I brought up last night, and I think it's fair to say, I don't know what we could have done with the police and firemen settlement, because that got ugly. That's like 7 years, they didn't get a raise, and then it wound up being an 8th year, and we had punitive damage hanging over our head. Something definitely, well, we seem to be doing a little better with that nowadays. But the point in being that in, I think it was 2005, I was at the university. They had Rick Santorum there advocating to privatize Social Security. No contrary discussion, just Rick Santorum advertising for Social Security. And the point is being that then we have this, I'll end it real fast with the sewer authority. I will also point out that education, nonprofit education institutions have drugged these people into town, and their ideas aren't always so good. I had wished we had done it another way. I was against the sewer authority being sold. Thank you. Have a good night.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address council?
Good evening, Council. Mark Markavich, Scranton. I have good news. Today is January 31st. And even better news, at the end of the month, there'll be leaves on trees, or leaves on trees. Any word on my photos?
Mr. Voldenberg, did we receive those?
I got nothing.
We're waiting on the photos from February 24th of '23.
Okay, well.
Those particular photos that were forwarded to Mr. Margavich were from the revisit by code enforcement on April 25th.
Okay.
So I believe they submitted them to him in error, and I'm awaiting from Mr. Oleski for the actual photos from February 24th.
Okay, thank you.
So we did all believe last week that they are required to take them on visits. Was that a yes? Anyone know that not to be the case? When they write a citation, that they should have photos with that citation?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And as far as with the right-to-know request regarding your own property, do you need to do a right-to-know request, or is that not necessary for your own property?
Are you looking for documentation?
Just, yeah, anything that involving...
So anytime you want documentation or things written out to you, you've got to do a right to know. I mean, if you just ask, we can put a request in again,
But nothing, see, I was told by another code enforcement official that photos could be sent to the property owner, and this was a place that I manage, so the property owner did request them, and he did get them immediately, but I could not get them as the property manager. So I was just wondering if that was correct by what this code official who's currently employed with the city, if that is correct, or...
I don't know what code official would tell you that. I would go to Mr. Oleski for that answer.
Okay, all right. Now, I don't know if they knew I was waiting for the photos, but I was, and you know, the bigger concern that I have with this is the same code official, who I won't identify the person, decided to lie in court. And not only do I have my tenant as the witness to both answering the door that day and being in court, but I also have a city employee who also is a witness to that. And I'm just wondering how we could address this situation.
Well, I have no answer for that. Attorney Gilbride, are we allowed to deal with that at all if it's a court issue?
No, quite frankly, it's not the city council's position to get involved in what would be potential litigation on behalf of a private property owner. That would be up to you to hire an attorney and go forward with that attorney in ways that you think are conducive to making out a case that you think you have.
No, I'm not looking to have any legal action, but I am looking to see what the response is to code officials, I guess maybe not doing their job and then lying in court.
That I would believe, yeah. Unfortunately, that's the administration. Contact the mayor, Eileen Cipriani. I know I've asked Mr. Oleski to contact you. He told me he had. And that's so I
Well,
assume.
you all saw my response email. I CC'd everyone but Mr. King by accident, but everyone got that email I sent back as well. That's the last I heard.
Mm-hmm.
That was January 12th, if I'm not mistaken. And then lastly, Mr. McAndrew, you read my statement last week. We'll just put a name to the concerned citizen. Is there any way we could do, if you would please do a right to know request for that document that the city claimed they did have? In fifth order, you read that for me?
So you're asking me, okay, so I responded, or I inquired about a property that you had an issue with, and,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and I read and reported out the response that I received.
Yes.
So you're asking me to do a right to know to get more information myself?
No, this would be if I could get the document that states that.
In the
you read the
response, okay,
response.
excuse me. But in the response that I read out, it stated that you did receive something, correct?
No.
No, I don't have it in front of me, but
Yeah.
that it was satisfied, that whatever the issue you had was satisfied. So when I hear satisfied, I'm thinking there was some correspondence. I wasn't involved because this is what, 10 years ago?
I know you weren't involved.
No, this is this issue that's 10 years ago, or?
Yes, this was a little bit ago, yeah. I'm just wondering if we could have the document that they responded from. That's what I'm asking.
Mr. Voldenberg, the response I received, could you ask if there is any documentation supporting the response they gave me?
Well, yes, but they did say they did respond with a document. I just want to know if we could have that document.
Or could they produce that document?
I'll reach out in the morning, sir.
If not, I could file a right to know it. That's
Okay,
fine, too.
well, let's-
Just if it's quicker this way, that's all I ask.
Let's see what we get.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Voldenberg, did we get clarification on whether a property owner needed a right to know to get information on their particular property?
No, we did not.
Okay, could we,
They would only need to file a right to know if they were requiring documentation that would take some time to present. And they suggest the right to know because it not only protects the body, but it also protects the individual making the request.
okay, so even if it's a citation or information regarding their own property, the city would rather the right to know request put in for documentation
It would
purposes?
depend on if it involved extensive documentation.
Mr. President, if I could just
Yes, Mr.
chime in a little bit. Mr. Schuster, the right to know is a request that's made on a governmental entity for information that the government has in relation to whatever the topic is the person is looking forward to. Irregardless of whether it's an individual's private property or not, the appropriate procedure is still for that individual to file a right to know. It protects the individual, one, by giving the individual some line to show that we've requested this and have not received it. And it also protects the entity for releasing any information in the future if it turns out maybe that shouldn't have been. So that's the appropriate way to do it, and that it's any government document, irregardless of whether it's your property or somebody else's or the government's.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Mike Mancini, Scranton. First and foremost, I would like to offer continued prayers to Kyle Gilmartin, his family, and the brave Scranton police officers who protect us on a daily basis. I'd like to ask a simple question. Were these documents received from the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority, from the administration? No? Okay. I thought so. So here's what's going to happen. This isn't the only source where I could actually gain these documents. Tomorrow I'm going to be putting in a right to request from the Scranton School District. They have a copy of them. Also, a friend of mine who resides in Dunmore will go to the Dunmore Borough Building, request those documents as well. There was a person who actually steered this train down the tracks. Okay, he's currently incarcerated. Also tomorrow, a block down and on the right-hand side, I'm going to go into the U.S. Attorney General's office, ask also to speak with the FBI about RICO Act. As far as I'm concerned, there were attorneys that raised their right hand to do well and follow the laws like Solicitor Gilbride. They respect that, and they have attorneys that are questioned, and also 50 easements that are still unresolved. There's 50 attorneys. All of them chip in maybe an hour and, take care of them without any additional cost. I mean, it's ridiculous. So with that being the case, no documents, I'm assuming they weren't found. Let's rewind. I'm going back some administrations here. Let's start with bricks and a budget deficit, all right? That was given to the Wenzel administration. 4 years, he set up 12 immaculate years of the Connors administration. I give former Mayor Wenzel an A+. 12 years of the Connors administration, we managed to keep 7 pools open, didn't raise taxes once, Everybody was happy. All right, A+. Doherty, $40 million in pension. D, former disgraced mayor, sold two most important assets, didn't care about us, didn't care about the roads. Sold the sewer authority for $100 million less than what it was worth. Turned around, paid off the debts with low interest rates. COVID hit. You know, if we kept that asset, it would have been worth a lot more today. So instead of using that money dollar for dollar for infrastructure, what's he do? He turns around, pays off the bills. We had great credit at the time, and here we are today. You know, we have streets that are falling apart. You know, we have DPW employees, great DPW employees that work hard every day, that are just restricted with their number of hours and what they could do. That was evident from the street plowing. I don't blame the employees. I blame the DPW director. D. As far as the city treasurer, I went to the city controller and I asked about the right to knows, about the right to knows. They had mentioned to John Murray that they don't pay any fines. Well, I'm going to put on an appeal with the Office of Open Records, and he could actually track mine to see if it's actually paid. I think these bills are building up because if he can't see them, they're not being paid. You know, at $1,500 a clip, $500 each per day. You know, you get 100 of these. We know all the problems with open records and those issues. It's an issue. All right. You know, there's a lot of things going on around here. Permits, D. As far as our mayor's concerned, you know, she wasn't even around for the floods, not even from here. I also give her a D. Don't care. You know, so I was hoping we could do better with somebody with a degree from Harvard. You know what she might want to do? She might want to call and get her money back because they failed her just as much as she's failing us. Good evening, Council.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address council?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments?
Just for clarity's sake, it was mentioned that 4 of us were at the hearing last night. All 5 of us were there. I couldn't make the 1 o'clock one, but at 6 o'clock, all 5 council members were there, and I appreciated that. And I do agree with Mr. Dobson. I felt rushed, had a number of points that I wanted to get through, and they, you know, kind of cut me off. Fortunately, Attorney Escrow was able to utilize, she kind of knew where I was heading and asked some questions, which allowed me to be able to speak about some of the concerns that were expressed to me via email from our citizens. So kudos to her for helping save me a little bit there, because I had that listed toward the end of where I wanted to speak, and I was at least able to mention it later on, because at the end of the day, it's the citizens and ratepayers that are most important. But I did want to, early on in my comments, to make sure that everyone knows, you know, the profits were, you know, well over $884 million in 2023. So, and then they want to turn around and raise the rates on us after that 70% increase in 2023. So, to me, it's disgusting. Just to give a quick overview of the case a little bit, the Pennsylvania American Water Company has proposed a 2023 rate case of $203.9 million. The amount of increase in water is $199.2 million. In wastewater is $4.7 million. The percentage increase in revenues are 20.2%, water 24.2%, and wastewater 2.5%. They said of the 71 million proposed, they were proposing such a small increase to wastewater because they're proposing to shift $71 million of wastewater revenue requirement increase to the water customers. That's 94% of the proposed wastewater increase. So of the $71 million proposed to shift, $16 million comes from the combined storm and sewer system, of which Scranton is part, and the other two CSS systems are in Kane and McKeesport. The effect of this significant shift is that water customers are paying more than they should pay for water service because they're paying for a significant part of wastewater service. And it's unclear whether the PUC will allow the significant shift. The Office of Consumer Advocacy is still evaluating the impact of that proposed shift. One of the things that was brought up by the Office of Consumer Advocacy last night, they talked about this program that PAWC was proposing, or they are proposing. It's called a Revenue Decoupling Mechanism, RDM, Alternative Rate Design Mechanism, applicable to residential and non-residential customers, excluding customers under the contract. The company proposes that RDM will compare the difference between actual revenue collected from eligible customers under approved rates against cost components calculated to recover the company's fixed cost of providing service. If the actual revenues are higher than they should have been collected under the RDM formula, the difference would be credited to customers in the subsequent year through the automatic adjustment mechanism. If actual revenues are lower than should have been recovered under the RDM formula, the difference will be collected from customers in the subsequent year through the automatic adjustment mechanism. This proposal includes no cap on the amount of the adjustment, and the Office of Consumer Advocacy does not support this proposal as it believes this shift risk to customers is inappropriate. So basically this means that if you don't achieve the total revenue through the rate increase because of conservation, which is decreased usage, they can institute a fee to get that back from you. So it's kind of a risky program that, you know, they try to make it seem like it's all wonderful, but, you know, if they don't meet their savings that they expect or the revenue amount they expect, you're going to get a huge bill the following year. So we got to keep a close eye on them because I'm hoping that the PUC heard us loud and clear, and I appreciated all the citizens, most of which, most of you sitting here were there last evening and spoke, and that was greatly appreciated. And I appreciate all of our local state representatives and Senator Marty Flynn and the work from all of their offices to go out and fight this thing. So hopefully we will see a positive result. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Schuster, you have any motions or comments?
Yes, I guess I'd like to follow up with what Mr. King said. He did a great job last night of laying out all of his points. Although we might have had a little bit more, I think what you put out there was some good information. The point of the hearing last night, they started off by saying it was about to see whether we had inadequate rate distribution. And from what I saw, from what everybody spoke on, I think they proved that point, and I hope the PUC gets that message loud and clear. All areas of the city were represented, and I think some of the main points that I took away as a council person, and I think council laid that out as well, is all parts of the city saw poor quality water for periods of time, and also poor quality restoration, which is something I've been talking about since I started here on council, and I'd like to see that the restoration that all of our utility companies do, is adequate for our city, which at this point in time, I would say it isn't. So I'm looking for a favorable result of the hearings last night. We've talked about it a couple times. There's some homes in the city of Scranton that have caught fire and are awaiting demolition. Two of the ones that stick out to me, or actually three of the ones that stick out to me, are the rear 1111 of Blair. There's a home also, I think it's in the 1500 block of West Gibson above Tripp Park, and there's one, I think, on Lincoln. I know that there's other houses, but can we just get a follow-up, Mr. Voldenberg, on those houses that have caught fire and are waiting demolition? I haven't
I'll
seen.
follow up in the morning.
Thank you very much. All right. I've seen recently, it was spoken about tonight with the Neighbor Works about homeowners and money that's put up for new home buyer programs. And I asked about some of the metrics that were used to see if this is a successful program. It seemed like it was, and I had known people that have used the program and it has been successful. Recently, I've seen some news about some of the businesses that have received the small business grants or the small business micro grants. And when the mayor and Eileen Cipriani were here in council chambers for caucus, I specifically asked questions about how the city determines what metrics the city is going to use to determine success of businesses for these small business grants. And I inquired into the process of how the BA's office would, if they looked at any ways to determine success and failure rates. I don't know if I got the best answer there that night, but seeing some of these businesses that receive some of these grants, I don't know if I want to say fail, but maybe going out of business. I had a few questions, and I will email them over after the meeting, Mr. Voldenberg, but could the BA's office provide how many businesses applied for the small business grants, how many businesses were awarded grants and the dollar amounts of each, when the grant window closed, how many may still be pending? Does the city still have funds in their small business grant or small business micro grant accounts? And did we determine that the program was successful? And if so, will we be distributing any of the leftover funds? Also, if a business does fail or go under while they're using our funds, do they have to return any of the funding that they receive from the city with the terms of their borrowing? Thank you, and I will email that over.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster.
Also, Mr. Gilbride. What was?
Legislation for the tax relief.
Yeah, can you provide a short update about the council's actions and where we're going to be going with the tax relief?
Yes, as we talked about last week, state law provides a way in which to offer taxpayers who are involved in a serious, like the flooding that we're discussing, there was a meeting between all of the taxing bodies. The process was established. In fact, I believe you all received this week an email containing the letters that will be going out to the property owners who were affected in the city, because of course there is a county component that the county has to deal with as well. I do not know the timing when those letters will be going. Obviously, that will be handled by the administration, but I know the letter was drafted. It was forwarded around for approval by all the taxing bodies, who I believe responded, and I anticipate that that would be going out well before the first, when the taxes are due, which is in April. So that's where it's at now, and then once that occurs, they will receive an application. They will be receiving assistance in filling out the application, and that's where it's at right now.
Thank you very much. Also, Mr. Voldenberg, could we ask the administration if there's any new employees that have been hired that need approval from council? I know that I think at the beginning of this year, we said that we'd like to see some of these appointments come down before they start their first day of work, but are there any employees that we're waiting on that legislation to come before council?
I'll inquire.
Thank you. From public comment earlier, there was a question about the rental ordinance, and I did get an answer from the city administration, and it said, as the current rental ordinance states, dormitories are not included in the rental ordinance's language and their enforcement. This is in line with other municipalities and taxing authorities' rules and regulations. However, off-campus student housing is subject to the $45 fee per unit and included in the rental ordinance language and enforcement. That's all, Mr. Smurl.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Dr. Rothchild, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes. First, I wanted to also discuss the PUC hearing that took place last night. I'm really grateful that there were so many residents that showed, and for all the people who spoke, the elected officials, including our council for being there, and many of us speaking. I just, I really hope that they got the point and the message that we need to reject, that they need to reject any new proposed increases from American Water. But I hope they also understood just how unfair the increases last year were that occurred, that we didn't really have that opportunity to speak to, and how much those are still affecting our residents, and how we are not getting our money's worth. There's no improvements that I've seen. I know they say they're doing projects, but they've been doing projects and replacing lines for many, many years. I remember renting a place in Southside when I was in grad school, and them doing the same thing with the streets at that time. So it's, these are ongoing projects, and we're still left with poorly paved roads and dirty water that residents are frequently experiencing. So those were some of the concerns that I know I had spoken to, and I really hope that they heard us and heard Scranton and done more in our neighboring communities, that we deserve better. And I also wanted to just thank NeighborWorks for coming in tonight. I think it's always really exciting to hear about the different projects that they have been working on throughout the year. And I really have enjoyed myself, like being able to participate in many of them, and the city partnering with them on so many of the programs, especially the grants, like the first-time home buyer, and then with Beautiful Blocks. I think it's really great that they're going to be incorporating the sidewalks, and that there's an increase in funding for that. So I really hope that word gets out to residents, that people take advantage of that this year, and that there are a lot of applications, and people are able to get their sidewalks and the exterior of their homes repaired. And lastly, I wanted to bring up a concern from this week. The 500 block of Harrison Avenue had two properties. I don't have the addresses on them. I think one might be 517, but two properties that had put out a lot of trash in front of their properties well in advance of garbage day. And I don't know if one was maybe a move out. I think another one had already been cleaned up, but tomorrow is garbage day. So now at this point, I don't think there'll be much that could be done. But if we can have still our code enforcement officer for the Hill go over there maybe over the next couple days and see if additional trash is being placed in front of those properties.
I'll have them visit that block.
Okay, great, thank you. And that's all that I have tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Rothchild. Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
I have a few. So, like I said earlier, I was thrilled to have the opportunity to participate last night at the hearing and see my colleagues there, as well as all the other local officials fighting for us, and the concerned residents. Just listening to them is disheartening. 70% last year, 30% this year. It's a 100% increase. For the level of service we get, it's absurd. No one's water bill should be as much as a car payment. It's absolutely outrageous what they're charging us now and proposed increase for this year. I too hope for a positive outcome for all of us. And secondly, I have a few complaints. This one is South Webster Avenue. It's drive up to Saginaw Street. I know we got something back, Mr. Voldenberg, but I promised I would bring this up. I guess it's a vacant lot, 733 Saginaw Street. It's becoming a dumping ground. I'm not sure who owns it, if it's an empty lot and whatever, but the neighbors have been trying to clean it up, and they've just had it. So could we get, I know we got an update, but I don't think it was geared more towards the responsibility of who's to clean it, all right, or maintain it. So look into that for me, please. I need an update. So I got, hi, Mark. I hope this message finds you well. I was contacted on one time for a representative for the city that told me they needed some other piece of paper that I submitted the same day, and the answer now has been the same. We are working on it. This is in response to the only 8 people who live in Kaiser Valley that have received, I think they're referring to the $5,000 that was promised to the residents up there. So can we get an update on who got it? Or we don't need names, just how many people received this? What's the holdup for the remaining, and why, if there is any? And just an update on that.
I'll get that, sir.
All right, Meadow Avenue between Music Street and River Street desperately needs some pothole attention. Just as you turn from Meadow Avenue to River Street, the holes are very bad. This is a very heavily traveled area. The road needs attention now. So we could you reach out to DPW?
They have that as of this week again, so
It's
I'll
on their
follow up.
list? Fantastic. So last week I asked about the DPW dispatch. Do they work weekends? What are their plans for emergencies like snow or flooding? Did we get a response? We got
did not.
something like they received my concern, but didn't. We got a response?
No, we did not.
Well, guess what? I reached out to some DPW workers, and they said, guess what? Historically, there is a dispatcher on holidays and on days where there's going to be emergencies or snow that is forecasted. So I found out for myself there used to be a plan. Can you find out? I mean, that should have been a simple answer. I requested last week, and all we got was they're in receipt of my request. So can I get some clarification? There was a plan. How come it's not being followed?
We'll get those answers.
Thank you. I got a complaint from a gentleman who lives on Bogart Place on the 2nd floor. This is Lackawanna Avenue, just 2 buildings down from the Scranton Liederkranz. As you may know, the Liederkranz does not close until 3 a.m. Well, they're probably not supposed to. Historically, I know that. I might have been there back in the day, but which means that most foot traffic doesn't completely clear out until roughly 3:15 to 3:30 a.m. This issue I'm facing is the noise outside the apartment during these hours. I understand it's a social club, has been there for a long time before me and probably will likely be there after. However, it's become a major issue, especially when I'm working a 24-hour shift and my girlfriend is alone. She gets woken up at 3:30 a.m., can't fall back to sleep due to loud conversations, yelling, and music blasting. Especially on warmer nights and over the holidays, this noise is extended to 4:30 a.m. with people hanging out after, with music playing, and etc. This occurs on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights into the morning. Trash is everywhere. There's some attached photos I can send you, Mr. Voldenberg. The next morning usually tells the story of how many people are lingering and causing a disturbance at these early morning hours, I should say. I know this might be, something to do with the LCB as part of it and our local police department, but give them a heads up that this is occurring and it's affecting, the quality of life of one of our residents, okay?
And I'll add code enforcement also.
Yeah, send everybody, thank you. And once again, I'm getting complaints about the Weston Field lifeguard situation that's been ongoing for the past 3 years. We were kind of promised by the parks director that, we're going to, well, he was supposed to be a lifeguard, but that never happened, presented itself. But he did say, we're going to hold some classes and certified lifeguards, and we should be good. So my understanding, what I heard is the issues, again, are maybe they're open 1 day a week. These are paying customers and residents. We were promised this would be rectified. Can you find out why it isn't and what the plan is for our residents that are paying to rehabilitate and have a social swim there?
I will, sir.
And I believe, one more thing. So Mr. Spindler brought up a great point. A lot of this, finally we admit it, we have gangs, which I'm thrilled to hear. I realize we had them for 10 years, but now everybody's admitting it. So when you admit something, then that's the first step. So education awareness is key. Mr. Spindler had a great idea. We should have something I know they're working on it in the schools. I'm part of that school system. I know education awareness is important for every level of learning or something like this, gang-related, getting information out. So I don't know if we have to have a meeting here but I think the first step maybe is reach out to the chief of police, Chief Carroll, say, you know what, please come in for a caucus, a public caucus. You don't have to divulge any strategies that you're using to prevent gangs, because that doesn't make sense. That, the gangs don't need to know what we're doing, but we need to know, like Mr. Spindler said, the public needs to know what to look for. I realize that red is a color or a bandana because I'm an educator, and I see high school kids all the time. And I also, that was a great call by that lady who actually prevented the shooting single-handedly by her just watchful eye and knowing that a Scranton High kid can't have a backpack unless it's clear. So that was a great catch by her. But I don't think the rest of the public realizes that unless you have kids in school. So please reach out to Chief Carroll. So let's set something up, a caucus to come in, but just, offering some education and awareness for our public to make them feel a little safer than they actually feel right now.
I'll extend the invite.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. The first thing I wanted to do, last week we had a complaint about Cedar and Maple and Cedar and Elm. The traffic lights were out. They have been repaired. They had to wait for some parts to come in. But they are awaiting approval to be replaced from PennDOT. Mrs. Schumacher, the existing alert ordinance, it was filed with Council 49 from 2018 and filed with Council 50 of 2018. It was amended. It automatically sunset after 10 years, which would be December 28th or December of 2028. That's when it will be over. The administration said it just had mixed results. Nothing great, nothing bad. So the South Webster Avenue, the sinkhole there, DPW, I believe, is scheduled for next week to go and take care of that. The other thing is the Sorrenti Center. I don't know why I remember this, but years ago, Sorrenti Center, when it was purchased, I believe council had to approve the sale or something, but I do remember council saying, well, the fire station up in Petersburg Corners, if we could sell that, or if we were going to sell that we would use that money, the proceeds from that, to pay all of the utilities and stuff in the Sorrenti Center until it was depleted. So I remember that. I'll look back on it and figure out if that was true, but I'm almost positive I remember that. The other thing is, I don't know where, and I don't know how it became out that the city of Scranton was going to make money on the Sorrenti Center. So I'll research that this week. I know after they purchased it, it was purchased for the police department. There's fire equipment up there. There's all kinds of equipment up there. And they use it for a multiple of things. The portable firehouse that they have, that when they have training and stuff. So, but I still don't know. I don't understand where we were supposed to get money from that, but I will find that out.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do remember hearing that there could be potential. I do remember hearing there could be potential revenue streams from other law enforcement entities from outside of the city utilizing the center for some training purposes that they would, of course, their municipalities would have to pay to train there. So that was a selling point that I remember and I thought was a great idea. So
that I don't know.
To clarify that a little bit further, I don't recall the name of the system, but the city purchased
for training.
I don't want to say a virtual reality system, but they purchased a system that could put police officers in a virtual live experience, and they were going to use that system as well as the classrooms there to train outside law enforcement and other individuals, and it could have possibly been a revenue stream. I think maybe some of that technology isn't up to date right now. I think virtual reality is the way they're going to be going, but that was where the training purposes with the equipment that we were purchasing were going to be used to maybe bring in some revenue
From other
from outside agencies. Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't expect the city to charge other police departments and stuff, since they do help us in a number of things, but if that's what was said, that's what was said. But I will look further into that. Last thing I have is a letter to President Biden. This is a disaster declaration appeal. Since we were denied from FEMA back in, I believe it was December, we have this letter was made by Paige Cognetti, and all council members have signed it. This letter and all the other counties around are sending letters in to appeal the ruling of FEMA that we don't qualify. I don't see how we don't qualify. We had enough damage throughout the area. So, but this letter, if anybody wants a copy of it, we can get it to you, or Mr. Voldenberg, if it would make copies if anybody wants that letter. And I believe that is it. And Norma did the food drive for next weekend. It is the next weekend, I believe. What time did you say?
It sounded like it was next Saturday. I didn't catch the date from it. Is it next Saturday or 2 Saturdays?
10th and the 11th.
10th and the 11th, okay. So we'll, I bring that up for her. And I believe that is all.
Mr. Smurl, just one
Yes.
more thing. Can we, Frank, can you reach out to the administration and just check with the technology department? I know that's something that bothered me when I was the superintendent of schools, when our website wasn't updated. I mean, those things are important, and when people go there, that just information, who's in charge of the department, what, like if there's things in there about the swimming pool and the pool doesn't even exist, like, it should be out of there. We haven't had a zoo in years. Like, that's extremely important. So I know, believe me, I understand that the technology department is inundated and overwhelmed. But those are things that I think, the public sees, and it's important that it's up to date. So maybe they could put somebody on that to just go through department by department and on our website to make sure everything in there is accurate, as far as who the employees are, as far as what services are offered, as far as just the information. I think that's critical. And it speaks a lot about our city if we have old, antiquated information in there. So if you could do that, thank you.
I'll reach out to the director.
Appreciate it.
5B for introduction, an ordinance ratifying the execution of a temporary construction and easement agreement between the University of Scranton and the City of Scranton to complete the Federal Emergency Management Agency projects in accordance with FEMA debris removal construction plans, which are to be completed by the deadline of October 31st, 2024.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question. So let me just find a quick date here. My question is in regards to the deadline of the 2018 FEMA eligible projects. So the deadline, we did get an extension on that deadline to 12/31 of 23, and we did get some legislation that was requesting that we fast track those processes and fast track those projects because of that 12/31/23 deadline. I know I've asked these same questions before, Frank, and I'm going to ask them again. How many of the projects were there in total? How many of the projects have been completed? And how many are pending? And then when it comes to the deadline, did we get an extension on our deadline? Because I do see that right in the title, it says October 31st of 24. So I would imagine we got a deadline on that, but council has not been updated that we didn't complete the projects by December, and we've got another extension on it.
I'll ask those questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Tom, I did ask on that, and we did get an extension on that because of the September flooding. We did get an extension on that one because we weren't allowed to get in there at that time. And this is the bridge down behind the University of Scranton, the complex, the sport complex. Yeah, so that is the one.
Yeah, back when we had the flooding, some of the first projects that were done with the September 9th flooding were these FEMA projects from 2018, dredging the creeks in Kaiser Valley. So it kind of appeared that the city was reacting to the flooding. However, these were projects that were dating back to 2018. They just happened to coincide with a few days after the flooding, or maybe the flooding possibly fast-tracked them. So with that being said, trying to think of what
The date, the extension date?
So what did you just say, Mr. Smurl? Give me, repeat what you just said.
That the flood projects from 2018 weren't, the ones that weren't completed, we refiled for an extension because of the September 9th flooding. So then we are now into, I think it's October 2024. I did read it, but I don't remember the exact date.
Okay. Yeah, there was some question that came to mind when you had said what you said, but I'll remember it soon.
Okay.
And I'll get it over to Frank. Thank you.
All those in favor of introduction, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to enter into an agreement with Northeast Inspection Consultants, LLC, for third-party UCC enforcement services.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question?
On the question with 5C, can we just reach out to the administration to see how they felt with the quality of the company's work, any limitations that we saw, and if they've been addressed in this new agreement?
I will, sir.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay. And Tom, I had also asked on that about how many bids there were and stuff, and it is on the public website, 2 bids, and NEIC was actually the same price as they were last time, so they were significantly lower, and I didn't hear any problems with NEIC, so anyone else? All those in favor for introduction signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to the United States Conference of Mayors Dollar-Wise Innovation Program for up to $10,000 to be used towards the City of Scranton's Economic Mobility Program.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, filed to Council Number 1, 2023, an ordinance designating the 1200 block of Watson Street as a one-way street, allowing traffic to flow in a westerly direction and prohibiting traffic from flowing in an easterly direction.
You have heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second?
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
I make a motion to table item 6A.
Second?
There's a motion on the floor and a second to table item 6A. This ordinance is being tabled until a public hearing can be held on Tuesday, February 6, 2024 at 5:45 p.m. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6B, reading by title, filed to Council Number 2, 2023, an ordinance amending file to Council Number 13 of 2022 that closed certain portions of Center Street and Lee Court to vehicular traffic to develop a pedestrian living alley.
You have heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second?
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 10, 2024, appointment of Anna Campbell, Scranton, Pennsylvania, as a member of the Board of the Scranton Housing Authority, replacing Devin Drabhai Dav, whose term expired October 5, 2023. Anna Campbell's 5-year term will begin immediately and expire on September 27, 2028.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final vote on item 7A.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. King?
No.
Mr. Schuster?
No.
Dr. Rothchild?
No.
Mr. McAndrew?
No.
Mr. Smurl?
No. I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, previously tabled, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for adoption, Resolution Number 6, 2024, approving the intermunicipal transfer of a restaurant liquor license number 58619, currently owned by Calandi's Cafe and Restaurante, Inc., and located at 36 Pike Street, Carbondale, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania 18407, to Warner Dalty LLC, located at 515 Center Street, Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania 18503, as required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I mentioned this when we had the hearing a couple of weeks ago, but I was sad to see a Deso go from this location, but I am glad to hear that there's going to be another use for it. I believe the paper reported that it would be a wine bar, and that's not something that we really have in our downtown area, so it's always good to see new types of businesses coming in, and so I'm in favor of approving this liquor license transfer.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
Mr. President.
Mr. Smurl, can I
Yes.
make a correction?
Yes.
Back on 7A, you had read that you declared item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
Oh,
I
I'm
think what you
sorry.
meant to say is that 7A the resolution has failed 0 to 5. So the resolution failed.
I stand corrected, yes.
Thank you.
Eighth order, 8A, Resolution Number 6, 2024.
This resolution was taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote.
8B, Resolution Number 9, 2024.
This resolution is a liquor license application, and it has been tabled until a public hearing can be held on Tuesday, February 6th, 2024, at 5:30 p.m. There is no further business. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.